If you're tired, you're overwhelmed, and questioning whether this game dev journey is even worth it anymore, you're not alone. Over the past few months, I've been feeling burnt out. I have been a solo game developer and educator for almost 20 years, and I have gone through multiple bouts of burnout. And I've gotten to a point to where I recognize it in myself, and I'm getting better at moving through it, but I'm not impervious to it. I don't think anyone is impervious to burnout. And let's kind of talk about how to recognize burnout and some steps that you could take to get through it. So the first thing is we need to understand what burnout feels like. Not necessarily what it looks like, but what does it feel like? So some relatable symptoms that you may experience when experiencing burnout is exhaustion. That's one. Exhaustion is waking up in the morning and still feeling tired. Maybe you've been working a lot. Maybe you just dread going to work or working on your project or whatever that might be. You're just tired. Another one is guilt. You could feel guilty about not getting anything done today or even this past week or month, and you just feel guilty. You could also feel frozen, and feeling frozen is just a matter of sitting down at your workstation, your desk, in front of your computer, whatever that might be, and you just really don't know what to do. You know you want to do something, but you just don't know what to do. And so feeling frozen is a common feeling. And then there's dread. Okay. And this is what I would consider to be kind of like the last stage of burnout. And this is often where we get to. And dread can turn into a lot of different things. We dread going to work. We dread working on our project. We dread just doing anything, really. And that could turn into anger and frustration and just lots of other emotions. And so let's kind of talk about how this works for us in as creatives. Like you pour your heart into your game. You pour it into your work, or in my case, into my students and mentors, and you still feel stuck. It hits deeper than just being tired. It feels like let's say failed. It feels like you've failed. And if you're like me, you have task lists and you have goals that you want to reach by a certain amount of time. And then when those things don't happen, you kind of reflect and you look back and go, well, what did I actually accomplish in that? And I just want to remind you that you're not broken, that this is all part of the journey or the saga of game development. There's going to be times where we feel broken. I've been doing this for almost 20 years, game development and education in game development. And I've gone through several different times where I've felt broken and felt burnt out. There were times where I wasn't getting any sleep. I was actually suffering the consequences of insomnia, where things felt real, but they weren't real. And recently, I've gone through bouts of insomnia where I just can't really get through the work. It takes a lot of just so much effort to get through it. And you start to question whether or not you actually have retained the skills that you know you have. You start wondering, is something wrong with me? Hey, is something wrong with my mind, with my brain? Is it real that people just lose it? And you start to question those things. And that's where I was at. So let's kind of talk about why this kind of stuff happens, because the feeling can be overwhelming. It could just be too much. So what are some answers? What can we do to understand why it happens, and how can we get steps to actually get through it? So why does this happen? Well, for one, if you're a solo game developer, you have too many roles. You're an artist, you're a programmer, you're a designer, you're making all of the decisions. You're trying to make sure that you have enough marketing material, that people remember your game, people remember you, and it's a lot. It's too many hats. Then there's unrealistic timelines. Like I have a set timeline for what I want with my game and when I want it to come out, I started on this game, let's say 4 or 5 years ago, and I can't say that I've had to be, had the opportunity to put full time effort into it. And I haven't had that opportunity because I have a family and I have a mortgage, and you know, there's an actual life, and there's only so much time that we actually have. And so I set unrealistic timelines. I expected to be done with this game by now, and it's not even close. And then finally, there's isolation. As a solo game developer, you're by yourself. And for me, as a husband and as a father, I often take things on my own, and I don't practice the the partnership of relationships. And I'm getting better at that, but I can often feel isolated. Now, I'm also an educator, and that comes with a lot of problems too. As an educator, you can feel the pressure to be perfect, and this could be at your job as well. You have the pressure of being perfect. You are on a content treadmill, or you have the state of your full-time job every single day, and you have 8 hours that you have to commit to that. And it can feel like a slog with a full-time job like that, and trying to do game dev on the side. And then as an educator myself, I often feel hypocritical, because when my own game dev journey slows down and I'm not working on that, and then I'm giving advice on what people should do, it could feel like you're being hypocritical, not taking your own advice on that. Now, for me personally, I thought helping others meant by hiding my own struggles, because I want people to be inspired, and I want them to continue with their own journey. And so I often kind of suppress my own struggles, and I don't let that through. And that can often delay the healing that you need as a person. And it's something that we need to kind of understand, that we need to take that time to actually rest. So when we're caught in this state of burnout, how do we actually reclaim our momentum? And so I was at an event recently. I got the opportunity to go to Insomniac Games to take a tour of their studio, and to listen to some great sessions, and to even co-lead a session for university students all over the United States. And it was a really great opportunity. And what I really took out of that was something that I already knew. I just needed to be reminded of that. So let's kind of talk about that. So there are 3 practical next steps that I can give you. The first is to rest without guilt. Rest is not retreat. It's not failing. It's the healing part of your quest, if you will. And so when I recognized that I was burnt out, just not feeling good and not feeling it, I stopped getting up at 5 a.m. I just slept until I wasn't tired anymore, and I got up naturally. Over the past few months, I set an alarm, and I still set an alarm for 5 a.m. But it just got to a point to where I just couldn't get up. And so I wanted to sit and rest and sleep, and I started to feel better. And I did it without guilt, and just said, you know what, this is good for me. I need to do this. Then the second thing is to reflect on your why. What was your original call to adventure? Why do you make games? Why do you go to work? Why do you do the things that you do? And if you haven't answered that question, it's a good time to sit down and actually think about that. Why do you want to make games? For me, I want to tell great stories. I want to tell inspiring stories. I want to make games that are fun, not just making a bunch of money or anything like that. It would be nice to be able to support my family, but for me personally, I do this because I want personal freedom. I don't want to be reliant on someone else. I don't want to be reliant on a company that is just going to lay me off whenever they don't need me anymore. I've already experienced that multiple times, and I just don't want that anymore. And so, but the real why is that I want other people to experience that too. I know that for me personally, I'm in a place where I was laid off and I was ready for it. And I just kind of reflected and realized like not many people get that opportunity. And so that's why I started Game Dev Saga is I want people to have that opportunity. I want you to be able to make the games that you want to make and to experience personal freedom, whatever that looks like. For me, it's having a family and having a homestead and working in my garden in the evenings and just making games for my job and educating others on how to do that is why I do this. And I really found that out when I was at Insomniac Games with all of those students and listening to their stories and listening to all of these developers and how they got into the games industry and realizing that everyone's story is so different. The story basically went like this. I went to school to do this thing other than game development. It could have been finances. I think that was one of them. Was I got into finances. And then I got this really unique opportunity to go and do finance at Insomniac Games. And then I moved into something that I really liked to do, which was art. And this whole journey of how people get into the industry and get to where they are is really, really interesting. And then you start hearing the stories of people's past, their history, and it was just really inspiring for me. And it was such a huge motivator to do that again and to realize, like, why do I do this in the first place? And then finally, return to clarity or return with clarity. You don't need to finish the whole journey today because we just need to take the very, very next step. And that's what Game Dev Saga is all about. We do want to make a game. We want to reach a goal, but let's be realistic. We can't reach that goal today. We can reach today's goals, which are just a small step of the ultimate goal. And so that's pretty freeing to know that I'm not going to make a game today. I can make a few lines of code today, or I can create a 3D model today, texture something today. Just taking it one step at a time and then just really enjoying the day. Because here's what I do at every single day. I ask myself, was today a good day of work? And if I can sit down and honestly say, yes, I feel good about today's work. And I would ask you to put a dollar amount on what you think your hour is worth in a day. Because if you say, you know what, I feel like I'm worth $50 an hour, and then really reflect on the work that you've done today. And would you honestly say, I would pay $50 for the amount of work that I did in that hour? I would pay X number of dollars for that day of work. And then, that's one way to measure it. But sometimes today felt good. Got some things done, really happy with that work. Today felt good. And I want that every single day. And I want that for you too. I think it's important to remember that you're still in this. Even though you feel like you're failing, you feel burnt out. Every great saga has some setbacks. I think about The Lord of the Rings, one of my favorite books and series of all times, favorite movies of all time. And I've watched it over and over again. And without the plight, without the setbacks, it just wouldn't be what it is. And your story is like that too. I'm sure you could look back at the setbacks that you've had and see like how you've grown. And I often do that with myself. Looking at those times where I was really burnt out, looking at those times where I experienced grace from an employer and where I've experienced a student coming forward and saying, I finally get it. Like those are the times that just really motivate me to keep moving forward. And remember that burnout doesn't mean that it's over. It's just a plot twist, right? You didn't expect to be burnt out, but here we are. It's just a plot twist. And so what we do is we just think about taking the very, very next step. You're not off course. You're in the part of the story where the heroes wrestle with doubt, where they fall down, and then they rise again. They rise again wiser. That's all I can ask for. So, what do we do now? Take the very next step. Write a line of code, fix a bug, create some art, draw something. Just move toward your goal. And if you're in a spot right now where you just need to take that moment of rest, go do it. Like, seriously, don't think about your project tomorrow or today. Just go rest. Do it without guilt. The project will always be there. And sometimes it feels like it's just always going to be there, but if you take the time that you need to rest, to heal, you'll be more prepared for it in the future. Be re-energized and ready to take on any other challenge, any other plot twist that might come about, right? So give yourself permission to move slowly. I'm going to take a break for a week, maybe 2 weeks. I'm going to lay off of YouTube for a while. I'm going to stop doom scrolling. I'm going to stop consuming content. I'm just going to take time, whether that be with family, in the garden, something completely different than game dev. Give yourself permission to move slowly. So I'm interested in knowing what you think about burnout. Maybe you've experienced it. What was something that you did to move through that? And what was that very next step that you took? So comment down below. Love to see what that looks like. Now, if you're ready to keep moving, you're not alone. That's why I started Game Dev Saga, and I want to really walk this path with you. So I'm interested in meeting you and having you a part of the Game Dev Saga community. I have a lot of plans on what I want to do with that. I want to challenge you and give you something to work on and just kind of bolster your confidence in game development. But I'd love to sit down and talk with you. I've been doing that. I've been talking with people who are feeling like they're not good enough. And I'd love to sit down with you, like 15, 30 minutes, and just kind of talk through that, listen, and maybe give you some advice on how you can begin to move forward. So join the Discord community. I'm always there. I'm there to answer questions and would love to hop on a call if that's something that you're interested in doing. So if you're still here, thank you. I hope this video has helped you to breathe again. If it did, I'd love to hear what your next step is. Drop it in the comments. And if you want to keep growing with a community that values slow, meaningful progress, that's what Game Dev Saga is here for. Because you're still in the story, and the next step is waiting.